fishermen discovered the remains inside a storage bin, and investigators spent several weeks trying to figure out who the girl was.
It's an emotional trial. And because of the victim. You know, the victim was a 2-year-old child.
In October 2007, something sinister washed ashore in Galveston Bay. A plastic storage container, bobbing silently in the waves. Inside, not treasure, not secrets of the sea, but the unthinkable. The decomposing body of a little girl, abandoned, nameless, erased. Not a single missing persons report. It's as if she'd been wiped from existence. Her life snuffed out and tossed aside like trash, with no one to mourn her. Weeks passed in silence, until one phone call cracked the mystery wide open. Her name was finally known, but with it came a chilling truth. What investigators uncovered was a devastating tale of cruelty, betrayal, and a child lost in plain sight. Who was this forgotten girl? How could someone so young vanish without a trace, her body left adrift in a watery grave? And the question that lingers like a ghost in the night: who wanted her gone? And why are they still out there? October 29th, 2007. A fisherman in West Galveston Bay, Texas, noticed something strange. A blue plastic storage box, locked tight, bobbing in the water. When he pried it open, the stench hit him first. Then, the nightmare inside, the decomposing remains of a little girl. The call to 911 launched a desperate hunt for answers. Detectives scoured missing persons reports, ran fingerprints, chased every lead, but nothing. No name, no records, no one even looking for her. So they gave her one: Baby Grace. With time slipping away, investigators turned to the public. They enlisted forensic artist Lois Gibson, famous for reconstructing the faces of the lost, to bring Baby Grace back to life, at least on paper. The haunting sketch showed a sweet-faced little girl, dressed in the same clothes she died in: a pink Target skirt, a matching shirt, and white sneakers with purple flowers that once lit up with every step. The strategy worked. Tips flooded in as the sketch circulated, each one a potential key to unlocking Baby Grace's identity. The investigation, once stalled, now buzzed with renewed hope. As the investigation deepened, a coroner's examination of Baby Grace's remains uncovered a grim truth that overshadowed the mystery of her origins. The little girl had endured 3 skull fractures, jarring injuries consistent with a fall from a great height, like a rooftop. But the evidence told a darker story. This was no accident. Someone had beaten this child to death, then callously stuffed her body in a plastic coffin and thrown her away like trash. The questions gnawed at investigators. What kind of monster murders a defenseless little girl? And why? Early on, a theory emerged linking Baby Grace to Madeleine McCann, a 4-year-old British girl who had vanished from a Portuguese resort in May 2007. Madeleine's disappearance had gripped the world, and for a fleeting moment, investigators wondered if they had stumbled upon her fate. FBI agents reached out to Portuguese authorities, securing a DNA sample from Madeleine's family. The results, however, dashed that hope. Baby Grace was not Madeleine. With this lead extinguished, the team found themselves back at square one, the child's identity still a haunting enigma. Meanwhile, the release of Lois Gibson's sketch triggered a global response. Within days, the Galveston County Sheriff's Office was inundated with hundreds of tips from across the world. Investigators chased each one relentlessly, but none brought them closer to the truth. The case seemed stalled until one phone call shattered the silence. Cheryl Sawyers, a grandmother in Ohio, felt her blood run cold when she saw the news.
For sure that she didn't know what was going to happen and was willing to accept that a long time ago.
The sketch looked exactly like her granddaughter, Riley Ann. But it was the clothes that confirmed her worst fears. She'd bought that same outfit for Riley as a Christmas present. With trembling hands, Cheryl dialed the police. Her daughter had fled to Texas during a bitter custody battle, and she hadn't seen Riley in months. Now she feared the unthinkable. The pieces were falling into place, and what they revealed would expose a nightmare of betrayal, violence, and the ultimate act of evil. A mother's unthinkable crime against her own child. Authorities wasted no time pursuing Cheryl's lead, and their efforts soon unraveled a breakthrough that exceeded their expectations. The DNA results confirmed Cheryl Sawyer's worst fear. Baby Grace was her missing 2-year-old granddaughter, Riley Ann Sawyers. Exactly 1 month after the fisherman's grim discovery, the nameless child in the box finally had her identity back. But with it came even darker questions. Who was Riley Ann Sawyers? Who were her parents? And how did she end up in a plastic box floating in the ocean? Riley Ann was born on March 11, 2005, to Robert Thomas Sawyers and Kimberly Dawn Trenner. The two had met and started dating while attending Mentor High School, but their teenage romance quickly turned into something much more serious when Kimberly became pregnant at just 15 years old. Robert, still a junior, dropped out of school to work and support his girlfriend and daughter, while Kimberly continued her education. Riley Ann Sawyers entered the world on March 11, 2005, born to Robert Thomas Sawyers and Kimberly Dawn Trenner. The couple's story began at Mentor High School in Ohio, where they met and started dating as teenagers. Their youthful romance took a sharp turn when Kimberly, at just 15, discovered she was pregnant. Robert, then a junior, made a life-altering choice. He dropped out of school to work and provide for his girlfriend and their unborn child, while Kimberly pressed on with her education. The fragile family dynamic shifted when baby Riley was 3 months old. Kimberly moved in with Robert's family, where his mother became Riley's primary caregiver. This arrangement allowed Kimberly to focus on school, while grandmother Cheryl formed a special bond with the little girl. But beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. Robert would later claim Kimberly grew increasingly distant, obsessed with her computer while their relationship crumbled. Though they broke up, they continued living together in an uneasy truce, until everything changed in 2007, when Kimberly suddenly left Ohio for Texas with Riley in tow, and without a word to Robert's family. Robert soon began a new relationship with a woman named Catherine Priester. When Catherine discovered she was pregnant, moving in with Robert felt like a natural step. This decision brought together an unconventional household. Robert, his new girlfriend Catherine, his ex-girlfriend Kimberly, and his young daughter Riley, all sharing the same space. At first, the dynamic worked surprisingly well. Catherine and Kimberly coexisted peacefully, and Riley remained a cheerful, oblivious toddler. To pass the time, Robert even introduced Kimberly to World of Warcraft, an online game that quickly consumed her attention. But by October 2006, tensions erupted. Robert filed a domestic violence charge against Kimberly and decided to move out. He and Catherine rented their own apartment, later marrying and leaving Kimberly and Riley behind at the Sawyers' home. Now on her own, Kimberly sank deeper into her World of Warcraft obsession, spending endless hours online while neglecting Riley. Fortunately, Cheryl remained the child's steadfast caregiver, ensuring her granddaughter was fed, clothed, and loved. Yet no amount of Cheryl's devotion could fill the void left by an absent mother, a void that would soon lead to tragedy. Eventually, Kimberly and Riley moved out, though they stayed nearby, allowing Cheryl and Robert frequent visits. On the surface, Riley seemed fine. And in March 2007, Kimberly was granted full custody, with Robert retaining visitation rights. At some point, Kimberly confided in Cheryl about a new romance with Royce, a man she'd met through World of Warcraft. Living in Texas, Royce was a virtual stranger turned suitor, and though no one foresaw it then, this connection marked the beginning of a tragic spiral for little Riley. In May 2007, Kimberly uprooted her life, packing up and moving with Riley to Spring, Texas to join Royce, a man she'd met in person just once before. If that seemed impulsive, it was only a prelude to what followed. On June 1st, 2007, a mere month after arriving, 17-year-old Kimberly wed Royce Clyde Ziegler Jr. The hasty union soon revealed Royce's rigid views on parenting. He found Kimberly's gentle approach to Riley too lenient, insisting the toddler needed stricter discipline. Royce demanded Riley address adults with sir and ma'am, and pepper her requests with please and thank you. To enforce this, he turned to corporal punishment, a method he deemed essential. Whenever Riley, barely 2, erupted into a tantrum, especially in public, Royce responded with beatings. Cheryl later reflected that Kimberly had never minded Riley's tears or outbursts before Royce entered the picture. After all, what toddler doesn't cry? Yet, under her new husband's influence, Kimberly permitted his harsh measures, a choice that would lead to irreversible consequences. To unravel Riley's heartbreaking fate, we must trace the story back to the moment Cheryl, gripped by dread, contacted authorities to identify the child known as Baby Grace as her granddaughter, Riley Ann Sawyers. When Cheryl reached out to the authorities, she explained that Kimberly had recently gained custody of Riley before abruptly leaving Ohio. Concerned, she requested a welfare check on her granddaughter, unaware that this call would unravel a grim reality. Investigators arrived at Royce and Kimberly's home in Texas to find it eerily deserted. As they prepared to leave, Royce drove up, offering an explanation. The house looked empty because he and Kimberly were in the midst of moving, with only a few belongings still inside. But when questioned about Riley, Royce's story took a dark turn. He claimed Ohio Child Protective Services had taken her away due to sexual abuse allegations against him, resulting in her removal from their care. Moments later, Kimberly arrived and echoed Royce's story. She insisted Riley had been placed with either Cheryl or Cheryl's sister, even producing a letter from Ohio CPS that supposedly documented the child's removal over the abuse claims. But the investigators weren't convinced. If Riley had been taken by Ohio authorities, protocol would have involved Texas CPS, with a local caseworker handling the transfer, not officials traveling from Ohio to retrieve her. The logistics didn't add up. Their doubts deepened when they contacted Ohio CPS, only to discover the agency had no record of intervening in Riley's case. The letter Kimberly presented? Forgery. The facade Royce and Kimberly had built was beginning to crumble, exposing the chilling truth beneath their lies. On November 23, 2007, authorities summoned Kimberly to provide a DNA sample. The moment she finished giving her samples, she broke down and confessed. With trembling words, she admitted that baby Grace was indeed Riley.
I came back and I said, "Are you telling me that your daughter, Riley Ann Sawyers, is baby Grace?"
Then revealed the horrifying truth about her daughter's final days.
He wanted me to shove her head underwater. And I found myself doing that and hitting her with the belt.
Kimberly's confession unfolded like a nightmare. She described how, on July 24, 2007, Royce had declared he'd reached his limit with Riley's behavior. What followed was an unspeakable 24-hour torture session. The couple beat the defenseless 2-year-old relentlessly with leather belts, their anger growing with each strike. When Riley's screams became too much to bear, they devised a particularly cruel punishment, dunking her head underwater in a filled bathtub to silence her cries. The violence escalated horrifically. Kimberly recounted how Royce grabbed Riley by her hair and flung her across the room like a rag doll, her small skull cracking against the hard floor. Even as they continued the beating, Riley, in a heartbreaking moment, reached out for comfort, whispering "I love you" to her mother. Royce coldly dismissed this as manipulation, and the abuse continued. After hours of torment, Riley's fragile body began to fail. Her legs buckled, unable to bear her weight. Only then did Kimberly and Royce grasp the gravity of their actions. But it was far too late. Kimberly claimed she cradled Riley as the little girl drew her final breath. But instead of calling for help or showing remorse, the couple made a calculated decision. They went to Walmart, purchasing a Sterilite container, garbage bags, and latex gloves with chilling practicality. After cleaning and dressing Riley's lifeless body, they sealed her in plastic like discarded trash before consigning her to the container that would become her coffin. The next night, under cover of darkness, the couple drove to a secluded area to bury Riley's remains. Royce dug frantically, but the shallow grave proved inadequate. Frustrated and panicked, they shoved the container back into their car and returned home. Their second attempt failed just as miserably, their incompetence mirroring their cruelty. Running out of options, they hid the container in a storage shed, leaving Riley's body to decompose for 2 agonizing months. As the stench of death became unbearable, their desperation grew. Finally, they settled on a callous solution, driving to Galveston Bay and hurling the container off a bridge, consigning Riley to a watery grave. But disposing of Riley's body wasn't enough to bury the truth. To deflect scrutiny, Royce coerced Kimberly into forging a letter from Ohio CPS, falsely claiming Riley had been taken due to sexual abuse allegations, a fabricated shield for their guilt. At the close of her confession, Kimberly stunned investigators with a revelation. Just before Thanksgiving, Royce had attempted suicide. The mounting news coverage of baby Grace had unraveled him, and he knew justice was closing in. In a cowardly act, he overdosed on blood pressure medication and antidepressants. Yet another failure in his trail of destruction. When investigators searched their home, they discovered his damning suicide note. "My wife is innocent of the sins I committed." A final, pathetic attempt to control the narrative even in death. When authorities finally amassed irrefutable evidence, 19-year-old Kimberly Trenor and her 24-year-old husband Royce Ziegler were arrested and charged with injury to a child and evidence tampering, each held on $350,000 bond. Soon the charges escalated to capital murder. But Kimberly's trial faced an unexpected delay. She was pregnant. By January 2009, when proceedings finally began, Kimberly had given birth to a son while incarcerated. She surrendered her parental rights, and the baby was placed with distant relatives. Royce, conversely, clung to his rights. The couple faced separate trials, with Kimberly's unfolding first. Her defense team launched a desperate strategy. While pleading guilty to evidence tampering, they portrayed Kimberly as a terrified teen dominated by an abusive husband. They argued she never intended Riley's death but was too cowed to protect her daughter. The jury saw through the charade. After just 90 minutes of deliberation in February 2009, they convicted her of capital murder. With prosecutors not seeking execution, she received life without parole. Royce's trial unfolded differently. In a stunning reversal, he claimed complete innocence, asserting he wasn't even in the room when Riley died, contradicting his damning suicide note, where he'd taken sole blame to absolve Kimberly. Testimony revealed his own brutal childhood. His former stepmother described how Royce's father had disciplined him with the same savage methods he used on Riley. After 4.5 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict in November 2009. Royce Ziegler was guilty of capital murder. Like Kimberly, he escaped execution, sentenced instead to life without the possibility of parole. The courtroom drama ended, but the questions lingered. Was Kimberly a willing participant in her daughter's torture, or another of Royce's victims? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you're interested in more cases like this one, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to check out the next video below.